there, and welcome back to Beginner's Fab. My name is McGrew. I'm glad to have you guys with me on the show. Today we're going to talk about a project that is in direct relation with an off-road independence video that I just put up as well. The videos are talking about EGR valve systems. I made a post or whatever on Instagram and on Facebook that showed some EGR valve block-off plates that I made, and there was a little bit of interest shown in it, so I thought in this episode of beginnersfab.com or beginnersfab TV I'd go over how I made those. The reason that it's interesting to me is because what was of interest to at least one person, and it seems a couple other people who have looked at the post, are that it's not so much the difficulty of making a plate to block off the EGR valve, which is not that difficult. As long as your bolt holes line up, you could put a square or oval or triangular plate, it doesn't matter, and as long as it seals there, then you're good. But what was of interest is that they were asking with what tools I made them so that they looked so uniform, and that's a good question. So I'm going to go over that a little bit right now. The fact is that with the EGR valve block-off plates, or any kind of manifold block-off plate, or anything like that on an engine that you might need to make for your vehicle, there are basically three ways to make it. One is that you use some removable portion that has a mating flange, and you trace that out on a piece of steel, and then you cut it out. Two is that you take measurements that are the narrowest ends, the tallest end, because most of the time on engines and things, the manifold pieces, the flanges aren't square. They are sometimes, but typically they're kind of like an oval or a triangular shape or something. So you could do that, making precise measurements of all these different things, and of course always taking the center to center of the bolt hole measurement so you know where to put your holes. Or the third way is that you could actually trace out something that is like, for instance, you could take a gasket that fits, or you could also drill the holes first, bolt it to the engine, let's say, and then you could draw around the plate on the edge of the engine manifold gasket or flange, so that it would, when you took the plate off, it would have that marking around it. That all is pretty simple. There's not much to it. The other steps to it are basically when you go and you cut, make sure that you cut the outside of the outside of the line. I usually leave a couple of millimeters outside the line, which, let's say 0.90 or 1/8 gap between where I cut and the line itself. That just allows me the space I need to grind it down, and I can do more final finishing in that stuff, and it turns out a little bit better. Also, I used the bench vise this time because I just got it, and I have seen for some time now the need for having a bench vise. It's not absolutely necessary. You could use vice grips or pressure clamps or whatnot and do that way, holding it through that and then grinding and sanding. I also used a handheld, like a woodworking belt sander, and I turn it on, flip it upside down, and I use that. But that's also not super necessary. You could just use an angle grinder. It may not turn out as pristine or as nice, but it would work. And thirdly, I used one of those $20 cheap drill press, desktop drill or tabletop drill presses that you just push down like that, and you put a hand drill in it, and then you pull it down, and it makes it work like a drill press. Is it great? No, it's not. Do they work? Yeah, actually they do. You probably have to modify it slightly because, like, mine, when it goes down, it has a tendency to go inward, so it's not straight, so I had to modify it slightly so it goes actually straight down. But these are minimal things that, you know, have worked really well for you know, a limited amount of money invested. So you guys can do all this the same way. Don't be overly concerned about what you have. Just be slow. You know, take your time, be patient, go around it, sand it off, and then, of course, always just check your work and make sure that you have it the way that it needs to be. Now, what I also have a tendency to do is I have a tendency to drill. Well, I center punch the drill point, then I drill the holes, and then I usually oversize the hole just a little bit to give me a little bit of play in there, unless it has to seal perfectly, unless the shoulder of where the bolt bolts in is narrow. Just keep that in mind when you're doing that kind of stuff. And if you do that, these should come out really, really well. I hope that the video was of help. Hope that you saw how I was able to sand them, how I was able to get them done, and I hope that it helped you be able to produce something very, very similar. Please don't forget to stop by and see my other videos at beginnersfab.com. You'll also see some articles and stuff about equipment reviews, as well as ideas and concepts of welding and fabricating and stuff. And this is all stuff that I'm learning too. So I'm transmitting the information as I find it and as I learn about each of these steps. And then also, if you want to talk more off-roading, you want to hear more about that kind of stuff, go over to offroadindependence.com. I also have videos over there talking about different aspects of suspensions, vehicles, modifications, concepts that are good to keep in mind, that kind of stuff as well. And of course, please, if you want to support us, go by zazzle.com/off-road-independence, and you can find some stuff there to buy: t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, that kind of stuff, hats. Any support that you give would be greatly appreciated. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.